Hello everyone, my name is Lord Thrash. I know I haven't made a opinion video on this channel. I just want to give this a shot since I feel like I have something to say and we can discuss in the comments. My only request is that we keep everything civil. Again, as per normal, this is just my opinion and I'll see if anyone agrees with it. I just recently got back into Magic the Gathering. I was a huge card game nut throughout my teens and still very much am. Um, but since I moved out of my parents' house recently, I actually have had to sell off a lot of my collection, which include a bunch of card games, just about everyone you have heard of, and even some you haven't. That's how big of a nut I was. So all I brought with me to my current dorm is Battle Spirits and Grand Archive. So when I got here, I decided to pick up Magic the Gathering. I originally picked up Warhammer, but I ended up selling off all my stuff because I just didn't have the time to paint everything. In between work and studies and preparing for my senior university, I don't have the time to take something that is that big of a hobby. So my only option was to pick something where I could simply build a deck and then go play and have fun on the weekend because my weeks can sometimes be pretty stressful. So I picked up Magic the Gathering. I built a budget deck. I didn't just want to build a starter deck. I wanted to actually build something that was kind of unique and so I could upgrade it over time. So I ended up going on TCG Player and I got built, I don't know how well you can see that, Elsha of the Infinite deck. I know there's Artifact and Spellslinger, but I decided to do Artifact. Just because I kind of just like the playstyle. I have a bunch of cost reduction in here. It's just a lot of fun. I'll throw some images up later, and I can even do a deck list video if you want. It took several weeks to get everything assembled because TCG Player is kind of shit with mass orders. I'm still waiting on one card that I'm just temporarily replacing with a Burnished Heart. But it's actually a pretty fun deck. It currently lacks a good win condition, which is one of the upgrades I'm looking to fix. But it's generally a nice deck. It's fun. I've attended both casual commander and some casual tournaments on Friday nights. I've started attending this one local game store. It's $8, and it's a tournament where they give you little coins as prizing that you can trade in, like tokens at Chuck E. Cheese's for prize packs and stuff. And they've actually set up your token rewards based on how many players you kill per turn. So it kind of helps to discourage going infinite and just wiping every opponent in one turn. Um, so it's been pretty nice so far. I'm gonna go over the first time I lost because that's actually one of the experiences that set me on the path to upgrading. Like I said, this deck doesn't have a lot of win cons in it. It just has mainly just a bunch of artifacts. Elsha lets me play artifacts off the top of my deck, and the cost reduction helps them come in for cheap, if not free. And during my first tournament at the store, I think it was during the second round, I came in second. And I would have gone higher, but the dude I was playing against, I have something in this deck called Pyxis of Pandemonium. Pyxis of Pandemonium, what it does is you can tap it to banish the top part of everyone's deck face down. Then later in the game, you can pay 7, exile it, and basically take all the everyone takes the permanents they banish this way and gets them for free. I decided to give everyone back their cards after banishing about 10 or so cards as part of a deal with another player to get rid of the biggest threat on the field. It was kind of like an alliance, kind of like The Office. Um, and unfortunately, when he flipped up his permanents, one of those permanents was a Hellkite Tyrant, which he then proceeded, in order to get rid of the other dude, he needed more mana, so he hit me, took my entire board, if I'm being honest, including my mana generating artifacts, and used them to pay for his lasso to beat the guy. And we made a joke later. I said, "Fuck your friendship. I want my stuff back." But it kind of inspired me because even though I lost that game, even though I did not win, I liked the experience because my first thought was, "How much is that card? Can I put that card in my deck? That would be really fun. I have so many ideas for dumb shit I can do with that card, right?" And that's kind of how I approach card games in general. I don't mind losing if losing is fun, if something fun or interesting happened. I like unique card interactions. I like big combos, big booms. Um, what I don't care for are control decks. And by control, I don't just mean shit that can counter a lot. I mean decks that full on lock you out of playing. So I'm a bit new to Magic, so I don't know all the terminology. So I'm going to explain the game in which my opponent basically played solitaire. His commander was Grand Arbiter Augustine the Fourth. He had a Smothering Tithe in play, which allowed him to generate mana, which he needed to because he had Aura of Silence, Stasis, and Archon of Emeria. And that was just the start. Okay? The Stasis came in late game, and that's what really fucked us up. Because what happens is a lot of our stuff was entering tapped, all of our shit was costing more, and on top of this, we didn't get an untapped step. So the reason this really frustrated me, and I straight up just collected my prize and walked out because I was not in a good head state after this game, is because it was denying me core mechanics of the game. Untapping is a core mechanic. Being able to play lands and play spells is a core mechanic. When he had stuff in play that was preventing us from literally just playing, we went through, I think it was like 5 or more rounds where all three of us would pick up the top card of a deck. If it wasn't a land, we'd discard down to hand size and pass. If it was a basic land, we'd put it into play and pass. That was the state of the game when he eventually got to his infinite kill combo. The infinite kill combo consisted of Rest in Peace and Helm of Obedience. What these do is Rest in Peace banishes the graveyards, and then whenever a card or token will be placed anywhere into the graveyard, it is instead banished. Now, the reason this combos with Helm of Obedience is actually a bit of an interesting rulings question. So what happens is when you play Helm of Obedience and you use its ability, you only have to pay 1 mana. To get that person to discard put one card, it doesn't say discard a card, it says put the card in the discard pile. And this is important. In a lot of card games, the wording of a card can actually mean a lot to a game. It can literally be the difference between a victory and loss depending on what words a card used for their ability. This is the same across like any trading card game I've ever played. It's actually really important. So because it requires you to put a card into your graveyard, to either put one card into your graveyard or until a creature is put into your graveyard. The problem is, Rest in Peace is banishing that before it hits the graveyard. It doesn't say when it's put into the graveyard, it says when it would be put into the graveyard. So what happens is you try to discard it, it gets banished, so Helm of Obedience will keep discarding, but because none of these are actually going into the graveyard, they're being banished, it ends in an infinite loop where you eventually just deck out. Deck out is when you discard all the cards from your deck and you lose the game. It's actually also a win con a bunch of decks. It was really frustrating because, like I said, up to this point we had multiple rounds of us just doing absolutely jack shit the entire game. And I personally did not find this fun. I literally told the event organizer, I said it was the most unfun game of Commander I've ever been in. It straight up ruined the evening for me. We only had 2 rounds in the tournament, and this was my final round. This was what I paid $8 to come sit through after a week of being in my room alone, not getting to play games with anyone. Because I just recently moved to the city, I don't really have friends here, so this is my life now. Yeah, it was really frustrating. I think this is a problem, and the reason I think it's a problem is because for me, card games are supposed to be fun. Now I'm fine with control decks and even control deck combos. I'm fine with going infinite. The problem is when you lock your opponent out of playing things, that has to be taken very seriously. You can say, I'm kind of like a card that says, hey, you can only tap 1 non-basic land. That's another card he has deck. However, that card, you still get to untap all your basic lands, so you still get to play the game. You still are allowed enough of the core mechanics for your deck to at least play shit. You still may not win, but hey, at least you're having fun. At least you're doing the thing that you're there to do, that you paid money to come do. You came to play the game. And being allowed to play the game is kind of the point. It's the reason I paid $8. It's hard for me to put into words why this was so frustrating to me. And I can see how Magic got in this state because, in modern Magic, you may have one card that restricts your opponent's access to a certain mechanic. But however, in Commander, where you have access to so many cards over so many years, you end up with a problem where all these cards don't exist in a vacuum; they exist together. And because they exist together, you can just lock your opponent out of the entire game, which becomes unfun. We were basically, as I described, watching a dude play solitaire. It's something that, because I like to design card games, it's something I do my best to keep out of a card game when I design it. I do my best to keep the basic core mechanics of a game available to all players at all times. It's the reason I don't like infinite combos that cannot be countered. Now, an example, when I lost the first game of this tournament, the dude was swinging at me with like a 30-30. But the thing is, it was a creature. It was vulnerable. Had I had a counter in my hand, I could have negated the creature being played. If I had gotten my Golem Foundry out in time, I could have built up some golems to block with. There's a lot of shit I could have done. I'm looking at upgrading this deck to produce more blockers to block with, because that's one of the weaknesses of my deck. Is if you just rush me, I will die. I'm looking at fixing that. The problem with things like Stasis or the other cards that make your cards cost more is that it reduces me to trying to wait until I've top decked 6 lands, and then when I finally top deck enough to pay the overcost for the spell that I'm trying to cast to bump one of your dudes, you already have a counter. And that what really seals the unfunness of this playstyle for me. For me, I could probably build one of these decks. I recently got a little small windfall of money. I'm saving a lot of it. I put a lot of it into savings, especially since I'm about to go to my senior university. Um, but I don't. And the reason I don't play these decks is because I don't find them fun to play. I want interaction. I love seeing decks pull off combos. It's hard to explain why I love it so much, but it's something about building a deck and then running against another person that really just makes the card game experience for me. Even if my decks lose, I will still just want to pull off like a 5 to 10 card Pix of Pandemonium. I want to, play enough artifacts that I get to pump out like 2 or 3 Golem tokens in one turn. That's the thing that makes card games so much fun to me. I love playing. What was it? I think I have it in a Scroll of the Masters or whatnot. I like being able to tap once per turn and swing in with like a 15/15 creature, even if that creature gets blocked, which is what typically happened. I still just like being able to do that. It makes me feel powerful, for lack of a better term. It makes me feel like I'm having fun, just getting to see the interactions happen. But when interaction literally denies me the ability to play the game, the thing I came here to do, I find it extremely frustrating. I just wish that people would have more respect for each other's time in a game store. And I get that it's a tournament and all that, and people are gonna have different opinions, but it's just how I feel. I just want to have my time respected when I go to a tournament, especially ever since it's not that competitive. We're not competing for spots in like a league or anything. This is just a local tournament for some pretty worthless packs overall. But anyway, that's just my opinion. Let me know what you all think in the comments below. Like I said, please just keep it civil. This is just an opinion video, and I'll see where it goes. Maybe I'll upload further videos. But anyway, like, comment, and subscribe, or dislike if you want. But yeah, have a lovely day, and hopefully I'll see y'all again sometime.